Okay, so basically first what I did over the weekend is I pulled one of YK's GitHub repositories because he already showed me kind of the game that he wanted to build, which by the way, this is such a difficult level to pass. I have not been able to do this, but when I see this game, this is already really impressive, but I want to make it a bit better, right? To make it an actual game, I might want to add more levels. I might want to change the environment per level, all that kind of stuff. And I want to use Claude, of course, to help me out there. And what I really like to do, instead of prompting Claude with the changes I want to make, I really like to use a visual flow. This is all created in Claude Design. I don't know if you've used Claude Design yet. It's new in our research preview. But basically, you're able to create presentations, slides, entire websites based on your prompts as well. It's basically Claude Code, but for design. But I really like having this visual approach for a plan. This is just HTML at this point. I could have also exported it to Figma or Canva or anything else. But this allows me to really think about the plan and the changes I want to make. So for example, here Claude came up with this Slingshot V2. So how can we actually make it into a game? So we have the game flow with a main menu. We have a level select, gameplay loop, all of this. So more like visuals that we want to add here. The gameplay screen, and this is all HTML. So this is pretty much already kind of what we had here, but we have some health bars and also some systems to design. So we have the health bar here again, the charge and aim. We already had this, or at least in the demo that YK just showed. In the original didn't have this yet. We have some haptics, which I think are nice to add. If you're like on your phone, you kind of want to feel, that something is like pulling and then smashing the plates. And of course, also scoring. We have some extras that maybe they wanna add as well. The different levels, which I think looks so cute. So again, this is all Claude Design. Claude came up with this. Okay, so this is basically all the prompts that I gave Claude Design. So this is in Claude Design itself. And the nice thing is that I can also just edit everything. So if maybe I want to change some of the planning, I don't want to say slingshot here. I want to say slingshot, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can just do that. And then I can later export this and use this as my prompt to Claude. So what I did for the design wireframe is I just added it to my demo assets here. So this is all just HTML. The entire plan that we just saw with the different screens and everything else is just here. So now I can just open Claude real quick. Claude is already running here. And to make this, use the agent platform, it's already running on Vertex AI. But how I did it is that we actually have a really nice built-in wizard called Setup Vertex. So we have setup Vertex, and when you run that, it'll automatically do most of the setup that we just saw. So for example, here I can just say, okay, I want to use my application default credentials, perfect. I want to use a different project. This one is called Project Arson Scratch of Foo. I want to do global. It's going to do a quick check to Haiku, just making sure that everything is set up correctly. And it's going to see which models we can use here. Here we see that we have access to Opus 4.6. We can also enable more in Model Garden in Google itself. And we also have access to Fable 5, which I'm very excited about. I'll be using Fable for this demo specifically. I want to pin the working models to 1 million, save it, and now we're good to go. So anyway, that was a quick setup. So now we're still running on Vertex just like we saw before. The only thing what I really enjoy doing is using auto mode. And by default, in an agent platform, that is an environment variable. So we actually have to turn that on first. I'm actually going to quit this real quick. I'm just going to clear it. You can do this by doing export Claude code enable auto mode. So now with that enabled and Claude restarted, we can now see with a shift tab that we have auto mode here. I want to implement that entire wireframe that I just showed using something called dynamic workflows. And this is a new feature that we've just added. And you just ask Claude to use a dynamic workflow. It's not a slash command, it's nothing else. So I can just do like read this design file and use a dynamic workflow to rebuild the game and match it. And I added it to my demo asset so I can just see demo assets. It was in design wireframe. Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm giving Claude a way to verify and understand what I want to build because it has this HTML, it has a context. I could have made this prompt a lot more specific. I'm like, okay, add all these levels, add all these other features. But honestly, I'm kind of just waiting to see if Claude will understand it. So in this case, we're going to wait a little bit. I kind of also prepared it like a cooking show. So if this takes quite a while, there is a tab in which this is already finished, so we can always just go there. But it's always interesting to see what Claude comes up with. So kind of to quickly explain what a dynamic workflow is, again, I created a little visualization. Hopefully this kind of makes sense. So sub-agents themselves aren't new. If you've used Claude Code, you may have noticed that sometimes it spawns a new sub-agent to perform a certain task. A sub-agent is essentially another Claude Code instance with its own context, and it's really good at just like focusing on that specific task. But if you're just asking Claude every time to like use sub-agents, you don't even have to ask it. The downside is that it's very non-deterministic. Sometimes it might spin up 4 sub-agents, sometimes it might not even use sub-agents. The other time it uses 10 sub-agents, all that kind of stuff. With workflows, it's kind of our deterministic solution to that. Workflows also spin up a lot of sub-agents, and that's a feature. It can go into hundreds of sub-agents because like this is a feature for tasks that takes hours or days or like these really long-spanning tasks. But the nice thing is that Claude Code actually generates a JavaScript file. And we'll see that in a moment as it's eventually it will kick off the workflow. But you can see that JavaScript file and you can save the workflow to then rerun it later on as a / command. So if you really like a specific kind of steps that Claude Code took with specific sub-agents, you can save it and rerun it in that very deterministic way. And because all these sub-agents run in parallel, you can also achieve a lot more within usually the same amount of time as a single sub-agent would have because it's parallel. And what you'll see is Claude is pretty smart at like kind of delegating these sub-agents to be very focused on a specific task. Okay, so just like a cooking show, I figured that Claude would take a while to kind of spin this all up. That's all expected. Fable is a bit slower because it's such a large model. But here I showed the exact same command. This is also what I just typed in my other terminal, right? Read this design file and use a dynamic workflow to rebuild this game and to match it. It's the exact same HTML file as well. And it then ran this workflow, and we can see what it ran by with the workflows / command. And here you can see that it ran this specific workflow. So here we had 4 agents in the build phase. We had build engine, build UI, build audio, and levels and haptics. We then had an integration phase. So this is another sub-agent, a review phase, and a verify phase. So these phases run sequentially, but the actual build agents all run in parallel. You can see that this is all Fable 5. We can also go into it. And the nice thing is that if we like this workflow, in this case, it's like rebuilding a game, so it doesn't make too much sense to save this, but we could by just pressing S. And then we could do like save dynamic workflow and save as rebuild slingshot game. Sure, for this demo, I'll save it as that. And now you can see that it saved this JavaScript file. So I'm kind of just want to open it and see if I can open it this way. I'm just going to remove this. And you can see that this is a JavaScript file that Claude Code created for this workflow. I didn't type this. This is all Claude. And you can see that it's just a normal function. It's like a build phase. We see all the builders. We see the prompt that it's using for all these sub-agents. We have a review phase, all that kind of stuff. So if we want to, we can also be very specific here. Maybe I don't want all sub-agents to use Fable like it did here. If we go into workflows, you can see that it all used Fable 5. In some cases, I don't need a model that's strong for this sub-agent. Maybe I want to use Sonnet or Opus. We can just ask Claude, of course, to change that. We can just ask Claude, like, hey, please use Sonnet for all your sub-agents. But we can also actually see it in our code and edit the code itself. And again, because this is all just a JavaScript file, this is deterministic. So then every time we invoke that / command, it will just run these exact same sub-agents. So that's incredibly nice. I'm just going to see what I came up with. I run dev. So yeah, it used this workflow to rebuild it according to our design spec. Let me see if it actually made it look good though. So it actually did make it almost in the exact same like design pattern with this kind of like draw look. But it definitely added some levels. It added, I don't know if you can hear it, it added like audio to the levels. And it actually made it into a real game. So now we have different levels, everything else. So almost exactly like our original design like spec here. Um, so honestly, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm not sure if I can, like, clear all these levels.